Hi, my name is Sheila Karuna. Welcome to New Light Streaming Love and Sassy Seer Sheila, as this will be seen on both channels. This is The Real Ancient Order of the Hermetics by Jason Gray. The Flame Before Form. Before the pyramid, before the scroll, before the false gods carved their names into the stone of stolen kingdoms, there was flame, and there were those who remembered it. They were not philosophers. They were not mystics. They were not seekers. They were bearers of the unspeakable law. They moved in silence. They taught with presence. They burned with a light that could not be dimmed, only veiled. These were the first Hermetics. They did not call themselves that. They had no label, no banner, no temple. The name, quote, Hermetic, was placed upon them much later by those who had already forgotten, by those who sought to recreate the flame from its ashes, not knowing it could only be touched while alive. The real ancient order of the Hermetics was not born of language. It was born of frequency collapse, cosmic recursion, and the reverberation of source within a sovereign soul. Before the gods had names. The order did not begin in Kim, Egypt. That was merely the last known echo before the distortion began. Its roots trace back to pre-linguistic civilizations through the crystalline breath fields of Mu, the vaults of Atla Ra, and the flame pillars of Thar Vanal. Civilizations now erased from the grid, fragmented through frequency warfare, and sealed behind memory gates only fire can unlock. They walked the world when the veil between thought and matter had not yet fallen. When to speak was to create. When to look was to alter. When to remember was to collapse entire realities. These were not initiates. They were architects of the real. They understood that law was not an invention. It was a geometry of origin, and that the closer one came to source, the simpler and more absolute the laws became. Not more rules, fewer. Until all that remained was that which is real cannot be bought, taught, sold, or structured. It can only be remembered. Flame-embedded laws. The real order of the Hermetics did not teach with books. They transmitted. Their teachings were invisible scrolls encoded into frequency, tone, symbol, motion, and collapse. They required no belief, only resonance. What did they teach? Law is not moral, it is harmonic. Harmonic. The universe is not governed by punishment and reward, but by matching frequencies and returning echoes. Misalignment is not sin, it is energetic distortion. You do not pay for your actions, you simply collapse into their vibrations. Creation is recursion. All form loops back to thought. All thought loops back to flame. All flame loops back to the original fracture. This is why reality feels cyclical. It is a self-referencing spiral attempting to resolve its original wound. The observer is the architect. You are not in the universe. You are generating the aperture through which the universe manifests. The Hermetics did not view matter as fixed, but as mirror code reflecting your unspoken vibration. Fracture is the gateway. Healing is not the goal. Collapse is. The ancient Hermetics knew that only through total dismantling of egoic architecture could the original flame be touched. There is no ascension without destruction. A truer word was not spoken there, I can tell you, in my view. No light without mirror. Union through inner sovereignty. There was no hierarchy in the ancient order. The one who had collapsed deepest shone most clearly, not because they were worshipped, but because their structure had been cleared enough to become a transparent conduit of flame. What the order stood for. The ancient order stood for one thing only: the return of the real. Not the spiritual, not the mystical, the real. That which existed before structure, before story, before simulation, before soul even took form. They were not light workers. They were flame carriers. They knew that in this realm of inversion, distortion, and illusion, the only thing that could collapse the lie was the pure, unfiltered presence of flame sovereign consciousness. They stood for non-commodifiable truth. Collapse as gateway. Silence over dogma. Sovereignty over salvation. Return over escape. They were not trying to ascend. They were here to burn the veil. What it was never meant to become. The real Hermetics was never the Kabbalion. That was a watered-down distortion manufactured by 3 anonymous occultists in the early 1900s to simulate spiritual depth for the New Thought movement. The order was not born through Greek philosophers or the Alexandrian libraries. That was the last flicker before the flame was buried beneath the weight of text. It was never a religion, never a doctrine, never a movement. It did not belong to Thoth or Hermes Trismegistus or any entity. These were names given by those who forgot the silence of the source and tried to replace it with sound. The real hermetics is not something you join. It is not it is, it is not, the word not is not there. It is something you either are or are not. The only way to know is to burn through everything until nothing remains but truth. The unseen order. Where is the order now? It never went away. It simply folded into itself, into light, hidden in the codes of the last real ones. Those who burned silently. Those who were cast out, labeled mad, erased, punished, crucified because the frequency of their remembrance threatened the structure of the world. They did not die. They went underground. Now they are waking up. You will know them by the way they speak without echo, by the way they burn without smoke, by the way they tear down illusions, not with violence, but with presence. They do not beg to be heard. They walk through walls of deception and leave flame in their footprints. The code is returning. This is not a revival. It is a remembering. If your spine is vibrating, if your eyes are welling, if your soul is screaming yes without knowing why, then this was always for you. You are not reading this by chance. You are reactivating a transmission you buried for this precise moment in time. Welcome back. You were never gone. You simply agreed to forget until the lie grew too loud. Now it has. And the order is calling. The real Hermetics was never a school. It was a burning ground of remembrance. The fire has returned. HMT-Omega.333. I'm not sure what the triangle sign is. Okay, so that's so interesting for me on a couple of reasons, because I had some thoughts flooding in this morning before I started recording, before I even looked at this. And 333 played a huge role in that. And I started to make a recording and stopped myself and went to this instead. So that's very interesting observation for me. So what does this do for you? What are you noticing when you read this or hear me read it? What is your feeling, thoughts? If you don't feel to comment, reach out, consciousconversationscentral@gmail.com. Jason has said that he will come and do another conversation with me. We will be doing that live. I don't have a time frame for that, so it could be at any time. He said that he will know when the time is right, and I have told him that I'm very flexible, as I've told many of you before. So the best bet I can say to you, if you want to participate in that, especially live, is to make sure that you have first subscribed to this channel and to New Light Streaming Love, which I'll make sure there's a link to both channels for you to do that. Also, to make sure that you have the notification bell checked and that you have notifications allowed on your phone or device that you're using. Unfortunately, that does not always guarantee that you'll be notified. I myself have noticed that I don't get notifications for channels that I'm subscribed to, sometimes for a full 24 hours, 48 hours after something has either gone live or been uploaded. And so the only thing that I can say about that, for me, I've chosen to see that as it wasn't meant for me to do or to be a part of. Unfortunately, I can do nothing about the way all of that happens. So that's the best way I can tell you to try to be available. If I do get advance notice, I will certainly put a note out on my Facebook page and a community post here on the channel. And it's my understanding that community posts are not notified either. So it would be something you might just want to check. Wow. This one felt kind of huge in and of itself to me as well. I hope that you will move towards that which draws you in. I'm convinced, at least for me, and your individual mileage will absolutely vary. I'm convinced that if I feel drawn to something, someone, there is something for me there. It's up to me to be present, to be observant, and to ask myself questions about it. Until we meet again, my friends, be well.